So now let's look at the JavaScript that does the behind-the-scenes work of making the dynamic menus dynamic. We saw that the XHTML provides the elements that display on the screen. The CSS formats the elements so that they look just right and it positions them in the right places on the screen. And the JavaScript is what makes it all dynamic. It's what ties it all together. So this is the JavaScript, and I'm just going to say up front that the intent here is not to teach you JavaScript as a language. JavaScript as a language is a full-featured language, and it takes some effort to learn it, and it takes some basic programming skills to be able to write JavaScript well. The intent in this movie is to show you the functionalities that's provided here and to talk a little bit about the document object model, which is how all three of these technologies get tied together, the XHTML and the CSS and the JavaScript, the glue that holds them all together, that allows them to interact with each other, is called the document object model, or DOM. This JavaScript file here was written by me personally, and you are free to use it and modify it however you see fit. I do ask that you keep my attribution intact at the top of the file. Other than that, you can do with it whatever you like, and I hope that you find many clever things to do with it and that you will share them with me. This is a fairly short piece of code. It is 94 lines. Yeah, it's 94 lines long, and it's very simple. I tend to write simple code. I like simple code. I like to write things that are small and flexible and powerful, and if I need large and complex, I tend to write a bunch of small and simple things and put them together rather than write one big, large, and complex thing. So how this works is actually very simple. There's a number of configuration variables up here at the top, and some arrays are declared and things like that. We check to see if it's Internet Explorer because there's one particular thing that needs to be done differently in Internet Explorer, and we'll get to that in a moment. And then there's this simple function here. This simple function here is called setMenu, and you saw in the HTML, in the event handlers, that you call this directly. That makes it an entry point, and so I have the comment here that it's an entry point. So setMenu, what that does is it turns the menu on so that you can see it. So it does this by setting the visibility attribute for the element to visible. You'll remember in the CSS that we set the visibility attribute for the vertical menus, we set that to hidden. And what this does, when that event happens, the mouse goes over the object on the screen and the visibility attribute here gets set to visible, and poof, that vertical menu becomes visible and you can see it and you can interact with it. So this is the DOM right here. This is the document object model. We take a variable E, because I like short and simple variable names, because I like short and simple, and we call this DOM function. This is the document object model here. Document.getElementById and ID. And ID is passed in, and you remember we called these from the HTML with the event handler. We specified an ID. We said menu sub 1. And that's this ID here, and it gets passed into this DOM function here, and it returns the actual DOM element, which gets stored in this variable E. And then we're able to take the E and subscript its style and its visibility and set that to visible. And that code right there makes that menu appear. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. The complexity is in understanding that there is this glue, this fourth element, kind of like a fifth beetle, this fourth element called the DOM, which isn't something that we normally see directly. We access it through JavaScript here with this functionality. We access it through XHTML with the ID selector. We access it through CSS by setting the property to hidden. And all of these things are tied together by the DOM. And so that's how that works. So the DOM is used there. Here in the hide menu function, which is where we actually make it hidden, we access the DOM again. Here we use the same document getElementById and e.style.visibility equals hidden. And there we set it to hidden. So That is really the operative part of this code. The rest of it is all candy and style and things like the fades and such. And we'll talk about the fades in the movie on opacity. But that is really the meat of it right there, those two lines of code, setting it to hidden and setting it to visible.